Hi, I'm Rachel from Sweetthorn. Welcome to my latest embroidery update. A couple of months ago I stitched a quick sketch of bird tracks in the snow. I was just trying out an idea to see if it worked. I had to think about how the stitches could create the effect I was looking for, and I got the results I wanted. That quick experiment gave me an idea for another design to try out. The first piece had short rows of tracks, but I thought a spiral design would look interesting. I'm using white felt instead of linen to suggest the snow. And instead of having black footprints that reveal the ground beneath melted snow, I'm trying out a blue-grey thread to suggest tracks in thick snow. At the centre of my spiral, I have Blackbird tracks. I've used a staggered version of fern stitch with a long central spike and two more toes branching off in the middle. I've traced the design onto transparent wash-away stabiliser, which I find very useful for stitching on thicker fabrics. The stabiliser is stitched to the felt, and then it's all sandwiched together in the embroidery hoop. Most of the time I'm using 3 strands of embroidery floss for all the tracks. The duck prints start with regular fern stitch, which looks like an arrow. There's one central stitch and one on either side, all the same size. The webbing on the duck's feet is worked in fly stitch. Here I'm using 2 strands to suggest a more delicate impression in the snow. I think I could have used 1 strand to make the contrast more obvious. The next print is a wood pigeon, which is similar to the blackbird but slightly curved. I'm using fly stitch to create the curve and adding an extra stitch in the centre. It's slightly more fanciful to have a continuous train of footprints that change into different birds, but this is the fun of artistic license. It's not always about imitating reality, but creating something to see how it would look. The final set of tracks belong to a pheasant, and I'm using a variation of fern stitch again. The middle toe is slightly longer, and the other toes are more splayed out than the blackbird and the pigeon. I'm adding a small stitch at an angle to suggest a more curved footprint. It's still quite a simple piece, because I'm just creating quick embroidery sketches of things that pop into my head. But I enjoyed experimenting first, and then transferring what I learned to a new design. If this was one of my main projects, I could try out larger or more detailed footprints. I would also look at how to suggest prints that have sunk into snow. Obviously, these embroidery stitches sit on top of the fabric, even though they're meant to suggest impressions in the snow with a blue-grey shadow. Here's the finished piece with the stabiliser washed away. I've added a couple of extra pheasant tracks because the spiral was looking too closed. If this wasn't such a quick project, I would have spent more time making the spiral precise, but it was good to get the idea out of my head and see how it looked stitched up. Translating something from an idea to a finished project always shows the gaps between thought and reality, so it's useful to try out ideas and see where the gaps are. My next project should explore this sort of process further. I've got some thoughts on designs with a limited colour range. My plan is to stitch as many ideas as I have time for to see what projects develop. Brainstorming with thread is nowhere near as quick as sketching or writing, but it's another learning curve for developing my skills a bit further. While I go off to think stitchy thoughts, here are some more suggestions for winter embroidery projects. Thanks very much for watching. Please give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see how I get on with my new ideas. Bye for now.